Hello, everybody. My name is Jesse, and welcome to your Excel tips and tricks. Creating content can be time-consuming, but it doesn't have to be webinar. And this is going to be presenting by yours truly, Jesse O'Neill. So just a little bit about myself before we get started. I am the newest member here at our CompuEase team, and I do want to stress how amazing our CompuEase team is. Of course, we do have a few different trainers. I've worked with all of them, and I mean, everybody at CompuEase just seems to love just training people and helping people out. So it's been quite a pleasure to be working with CompuEase, even if it's been for a short while so far. Of course, my personal favorite thing about working training in general is just watching the light bulbs go off as I'm training, and just watching as people realize kind of how to use the software. One, yes, but two, how the software is going to help them be a little bit more efficient, how the training specifically is going to help them be a little bit more efficient at work so they don't have to spend so much time. And specifically this webinar, specifically this webinar is going to be super helpful for that, because we're going to be going through some tips and tricks for content creation in Excel, and of course some auditing tips and tricks as well. So you can take a look at your spreadsheet, either that you haven't seen in a while or maybe something that's passed down to you, and then you can go and you can use my tips and tricks to be able to make sense of it all. I'm going to go into that a little bit deeper later, but for now, just a little bit about myself. Outside of work, I am an outdoors guy. I love to do camping, hiking, or just about anything on a patio with a beer. If you were sitting next to me right now, you could actually see that I'm looking out my window and there's a bunch of snow all around. So no hiking right now, but I do try to make it out either way. But I'm just going to give a little bit more about our team, our company here. So you might wonder who JN Software and CompuEase are and how they're related to one another. They are sister companies. They provide services throughout Canada, across Canada. So JN Software offers training, consulting, and database development Canada-wide, and CompuEase provides training for Ottawa and the National Capital Region, which includes Quebec. JN Software specifically, what they do is they provide training, online classes with a live instructor, and I do need to stress that a little bit. Live instructors are always a thing with both companies, so we don't offer any pre-recorded training. It's always going to be with live, which means that you get to ask any and all of your questions. And this is going to be through private, online, and on-site training. We also do with JN Software consulting and database development work as well. CompuEase specifically, they provide on-site public training at our downtown Ottawa training center. So I can tell you it's a nice, beautiful center that we do offer this training at, but we also come your way if you need that as well. We also do private and one-on-one training, either on-site or online. So whatever suits your needs for any of your training needs, we'll definitely be able to help you out with that. And again, I do want to stress how helpful we try to be. We try to answer any and all of your questions as best we possibly can to make sure that you get all of your training needs and all of your questions answers, I guess, quite frankly. Finally, what we both offer is fast quality customer service, highly skilled, experienced, and professional trainers like myself, and a public class schedule with guaranteed to run classes that run often. So I do need to stress here that it is guaranteed to run. So even if there's only one person registered, we still run our public classes. We also have a learn or come back free policy on all public classes and 24/7 after training support for all software training. If you are like me, you do, think of your questions as you're in the elevator leaving the class, or maybe when you get home. So that after training support is always super helpful. I like to call it my Ask the Trainer support. And of course, we offer both software and professional skills training. So In here, just a couple of notes. Excel does have a lot of time-saving tricks that can increase productivity and comfort as you work on your spreadsheets. Whether you're a beginner or an advanced user, it's easy to overlook some of these great tips and time savers that I'm going to be giving you today. You can definitely learn some various handy tips, tricks, and shortcuts to increase your productivity and flexibility, saving time and stress from your workday. And of course, you don't want to be, you don't want to be trying to figure out your software as you're going through trying to get that deadline hit for your next big topic. So that's my goal today, is just to give you some information so that you can hit those deadlines and not worry so much about the software itself, but more what you're trying to produce instead. So it is going to be a webinar that's going to go today for approximately an hour, including our questions. So just a little bit about the questions. I am going to be taking questions throughout the training or the webinar session. So if you just want to use the little chat bar that's included there, you can use the group chat to submit your questions. And I'm going to be taking questions throughout the webinar. Just make sure to realize that I will be answering those questions at the very end. So it's great if you ask your questions, and I'm just going to, take all of them all in stride and make sure to reach everybody's question. This is a live webinar, as you're starting to figure out. So the questions will be all taken at the very end. Now, we do have 3 topics to cover over the course of this lunch hour. So we do have our topic 1, which is our fill handle topic. So the fill handle is mostly, at least traditionally, used for copying things like your formulas and copying your text over, but I'm going to show you a few different things that you can do in terms of extracting data and filling in content that way. Also, your flash fill is going to be very similar to the fill handle, but the flash fill is going to be more specific to just extracting your data. By the way, both of these topics are in our Excel tips and tricks course. So if you are interested in more tips and tricks afterwards, be sure to register. The tips and tricks course was created by my colleague Christine, just based off of her years of experience using Excel and seeing how everybody tends to use Excel. She created some tips and tricks and offered not 1 but 2 different tips and tricks as well. And finally, our formula auditing and error checking. I actually show this in my Excel Level 3 course, but it is super useful in terms of handling a document that you've never seen before, specifically an Excel document, and just making sense of that. So there's a few tools that Excel gives you that I'm going to teach you today. All right. So with that, I am actually just going to go straight into my Excel document here. So I'm just going to open that up, and you can see that I've got 5 different tabs at the very bottom there. So each are going to be a different portion of the topics. Of course, topics 1 and 2 are handled on the first 2 tabs, fill handle and flash fill, as you can see down at the very bottom. And then the final topic is actually covered across 3 different tabs, and there's a good reason for that. And I'll explain that as we get to that point. So the fill handle, specifically, just to explain what that is, when you do click into a given cell, you'll see that it will be selected, and at the very bottom right of that selection, there's a little box there. I don't know if it's a little too small to see, but there is a little box there, and if you hover over that, you will get a black plus. That will definitely allow you to use what we call the fill handle. You might not have even realized that it was called a fill handle, but that's what it is. And the fill handle traditionally allows you to copy things like text or your different formulas. So the first 2 examples are going to be your traditional uses of the fill handle, and then I'll go into some more depth. So let me just click on the fill handle, and I'm going to drag that down. And for the purposes of this particular example, all that does is it copies over your different formulas. And you can see that in the first one, when I click into my references for the sum function, what it's doing is it's referencing all of my sales, and it's giving me a total of all of my sales. But it's referencing the cells in B5 through E5 right here. With the fill handle, when I did copy it down one position, you can see that we've got B6 through M6 there. So this is what we call a relative reference to these cells. Our next part here is going to be about duplication. So the fill handle, again, just allowing you to duplicate certain things. So you can see here as I'm clicking into team green for my position, my teams here. I'm creating new content just by clicking and dragging, and you can actually see there's a little, I guess there's a little tip that it shows you there, showing you what it's copying over. So you can see there's a little raised window called team green there. And I can do that again, repeat that for team red and for team blue here, just to fill that in. Now that is your traditional use of the fill handle. This next part here is a little lesser known, but still quite often used. So you can see here that we have different numerical patterns with that fill handle. So the numerical patterns, one thing to mention about that is that the number has to be at the very end of your text right here. And I'll explain more about that in just a quick second. But first, I'm going to start off by just typing in a 1. And we're going to assume that our employee number for these teams are going to just be a single digit for the first little part here. And we're going to use the fill handle. And I'm going to click and drag here. I'm getting a question from Ben saying, I cannot hear anything. Where is the volume? So I don't know. Is everybody else hearing me? I know one person could hear me. I can hear you well. I can hear you. Okay, so some people are mentioning that they can hear me. So Ben, I think it might be just your earphones, or maybe there's something on your specific computer that's not being turned on, because I've got a few I can hear you. Oh, one person mentioned dial in on your phone. So that would be definitely a good tip there for some of the participants. They use their phone. So there is a phone number that you can call. It is provided in the invitation. So if you just dial in with your phone, that might work as well. All right, sorry, just continuing on with the Excel tips and tricks. So as you saw, for the employee number, what I did was I clicked on the first one and I dragged my fill handle down, and it just assumed that I wanted to copy that number over. Here, there is a little context menu. One thing to mention about this context menu is it will only show whenever you are currently using that fill handle, which means if you go and you use that fill handle and then you try to perform another operation and come back, this context menu that you see at the very bottom, that will disappear. So just make sure that you use it right after using your fill handle. And then you can see you've got some options with that context menu. And the first one here is called Fill Series. So instead of copying this down, you see when I click on that, it's going to fill an entire series and give you your employee number. One of the things that I would like to mention about that is that this is always going to work with a number as long as the number is at the very end of the text. So you can see that if I had an employee number that looks kind of like this, because that number is at the very beginning of the text, it will only recognize the text and copy it over. However, if you had it the other way around, you can see that it will recognize that there is a number at the very end of the text, and it will definitely pull down that number. So just a little tip there with your fill handle. We also have text patterns over here. So as I did already mention, it does not recognize the text. So if you do have a pattern, example, A, B, C, D, E, F here, just a very simple example, when I do fill that down, you'll see that it does just copy over A, B, C, D, E, F down, right? So one thing that people do not tend to know about the fill handles, from my personal experience anyways, is that you can actually use the fill handles as well to delete items. So not just content creation, but content deletion as well. So if I just select my entire table, let's just give the example where we have team green, team red, and team blue, and maybe team blue no longer belongs to this project, or for some reason they need to be removed from the table. So what I can do is I can actually select my table, as you're seeing what I'm doing here, and I would just use the fill handle the other way, so pull it up, and anything that's been grayed out there, as you can see, when I release that fill handle, will be gone. So a little anecdote between a couple of examples here. Just giving a shout out to CompuEase and JN Software. We always do our training live, and it's never pre-recorded, just like our training session right now. So you can definitely ask any and all of your questions, and you can actually have us help you applying some of these lessons to your specific work in our classrooms. Continuing on, we do have our date patterns. So a couple of really cool things that people don't realize with the fill handle. First of all, as long as Excel recognizes a date as a specific date format, and how you know that for sure is if you click on your cell and you take a look at the very top on your home ribbon, you can see there is the number formatting, and that specifies that it's a date. So you'll know for sure that it recognized it as a date. If ever you are unsure as to how to um, as to how Windows is formatting your dates, just take a look at the very bottom right hand of your screen, and you'll see that you will have a day, month, year at the very bottom right hand of your screen, or something similar to that. Whatever your Windows format is what I'm trying to get at, is what will be the default for Excel. So my particular Windows format right now is year, month, day, so I have to type it in that format for Excel to recognize it as a date automatically. Okay, so just as long as it recognizes it as a date, you can definitely use the fill handle, and you can pull that down, and you can see that it will fill in the days. However, if you didn't want to fill it in as days, maybe you're just interested in the weekdays. We're going to assume that Mickey Mouse only does sales on a weekday. What you can do is you can again use that context menu, and you can see you have a number of different options. You can fill in your days just like we did, or you can just fill in the weekdays, which I'm going to click on in a second. But we also have, if you'd like to fill in months or fill in just the year, that will just include the pattern for the month or the year. So I'm going to choose fill weekdays, and you can see that the 11th and the 12th were on a Saturday and Sunday, and actually Excel does know exactly when your weekdays are, which is nice. Again, it will also recognize days of the week. So I'm going to use that same example here and pull it down. And you can see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. And we did mention that Saturday and Sunday, we don't do any sales on Saturday and Sunday. Mickey Mouse doesn't do any sales anyways. So again, same thing. If I click on the context menu, you can see that I have an option for fill weekdays, and it will recognize it, and it will take out Saturday and Sunday for you. Couple more dates. We also do have months. So if I am, for example, in this, we have our monthly sales chart for all of our coffee sales in total. So you'll see here that if I put in, for example, January up at the very top here, it will recognize that as a month. And as I'm pulling across, you can see there's a little tip: January, February, March, April, May, and so on. So as I pull that across at the very end, you don't have to type in all of those months manually. They will all fill in automatically. And then a couple of final little tips with the fill handle. I just want to explain a little bit about the formatting. So you might not have noticed so far, but actually when you are using that fill handle, by default, it does bring down the formatting. So let me give you an example of that. You can see on here this cell does not have any borders applied to the very bottom. So when I pull this down, at the very last cell, because the top one didn't have a border, the bottom won't have a border either. So again, there is that context menu. So just making sure that you're filling it in. You don't have to go and re-add in that border automatically, or sorry, manually. You can have it do it automatically for you. So you would just choose the fill without formatting. It will still fill that series, but it will take off the formatting so that it's only filling in the data instead of the data and the formatting there. Okay, and then finally, we're going to get into a couple of little things about flash fill. You know what? I'm just going to give the example here of a table because there is the example of just using your fill handle for duplicating your tables that you've got. So if you do select an entire table, you can see this is maybe an accounting table, and you've got the account 1001 up here. And if I use that fill handle, really quickly, you can see it created a second table with the exact same formatting, but it applied a new account. And the very last thing I wanted to show you here with your fill handle, and it's a little bit of a lead into the next topic, which is flash fill, is you can also use your fill handle as a flash fill as well. So I'm going to explain flash fill in a lot more detail in the coming topic, but I just wanted to show you something really, really quick. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Excel a little bit of a heads up as to what I'm trying to extract from my address over on the left-hand side here, and I'll hit enter. And right off the bat, as I'm using my fill handle and I'm pulling that down, it does just copy over the text. But as you can see, Quebec also exists over here in the address. So what I can do with this is I can click on my autofill options, and I can use the option called flash fill, and it extracts whatever the month was from the address on the left-hand side there. So that is a bit of an introduction to flash fill. I'm going to give you a lot of examples of when you can use flash fill so that you can use it to your benefit. So we're going to go over to the flash fill, and we're switching gears here. We're going to go into just the flash fill. This is topic number 2, and I'm going to give you about 7 or so different examples of how you can use your flash fill for content creation. So the first one we already kind of did a little bit. We extracted certain pieces from an address. So you can see I've got a city, a state, and a zip code. You do have to give Excel that heads up saying what you would like to extract. So my city, I'll just put in Boulder here. My state, CO, and my zip code, 80304. Oops, mistake there. 304. All right, so now we've got city, state, and zip code. Now what I can do, I could use my fill handle. I do personally find it a little bit faster if you go to your data ribbon, and you can see there's a flash fill button here underneath your data tools. So I can click on that. And you can see that flash fill was applied to the column. It did go to the very end of that data and stop there. And I can go to Colorado, flash fill again, and zip code, and finally my last flash fill that we have there. So again, just a little bit of a just a little bit of a way to make your life a little bit easier in terms of filling in content. The rest of this is going to kind of feel very similar, but there's some tips and tricks in terms of additional things that you can add to your flash fill that I do want to give you as well. But just taking a little break just to give a shout out to CompuEase here. If you're like me, you'll always think of your questions about 5 minutes after the training is done. And of course, we give an Ask the Trainer voucher so that you can definitely ask your questions even after you are done with your training. So just continuing on here, we have, combining text and changing case. So maybe if you would like to put in a full name here, we do have to give it the initial um, format. So I'm just going to put in last name first, comma, and then first name. And then you can use your flash fill and it will recognize what you are trying to do and it will fill that in. We also have the full name with the initials as well, so you can use it for the same idea. So we're just going to go maybe Jones, comma, David, and J.D. And we can try to use flash fill and see how that works there. And you can see it brought in the initials as well. You can also use flash fill for extracting some dates here. So maybe if you just wanted the year out of your date, again, giving Excel that little heads up as to what you would like, hitting flash fill, that will fill in your dates. Extracting parts of your numbers. So if you do have sales, in the formal format here, and you just wanted to show it in millions, you could just tell it again, 800, and then use your flash fill, this button right here, to extract that part. And then finally, you can also, not finally, we do have two more examples, sorry, but you can also add in your flash fill to include new formatting for things like employee numbers or invoice numbers and things like that. So maybe INV dash, and then you do have to type in 893352 to match what you would like to extract, and then flash fill here. We do have some formatting in terms of the unnecessary spaces that you can use flash fill for as well, so that's super helpful. Sometimes you do receive data and the data does have some additional erroneous things in it, so you can take that out just by using your flash fill. Again, just using the format, giving Excel the heads up as to what the format is you would like, hitting flash fill, and you can see no longer any additional spaces in there. And finally, we do have extracting our numbers from text. So 4793, and you'll notice that it will recognize that that's a number. And you can use flash fill to extract the rest of the numbers out of there. So that's your content creation portion. That was section 1 and 2. This last section is going to be about auditing your spreadsheets. So just making your life a little bit easier when you do receive a spreadsheet that you haven't worked on before. Maybe somebody else has created the spreadsheet and you're inheriting it, or possibly it could be that you are you've worked on the spreadsheet and you're coming back to it 6 months later and you completely forget the work that you've done as well. So let's just switch over to trace our cells and our arrows. So I already did give you a little bit of a heads up to this feature. The first part of this feature is just taking a look at your formulas and then clicking into the formulas, and you'll notice that when you do click into any one of the given references that you have on that formula, it will color code those references, so blue, red, and purple, and then you can take a look where those references exist on your page, blue, red, and purple. And this is super helpful for understanding what your formula is doing, where it's pulling that information from. But it's a little bit easier if you get to actually see all of them at once so that you can start to recognize a pattern. Maybe you use relative references somewhere, maybe you use absolute references somewhere. So, seeing the pattern of your formula might help you understand things better. So for that, we're going to use a trace cells feature. So just one more little anecdote here. Just our training, I just wanted to mention that our training sessions are guaranteed to run, so that if you do miss out, or so you will never miss out is what I meant to say there, on any essential training. Even if there's just one person registered, we still do run our training sessions there. So continuing on, here we go. Underneath our formulas tab, this is where all of our formula auditing tools exist. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's actually a grouping, and we're also going to see the watch window in just a second here. So just on your formulas tab is where that exists. And don't worry if your screen looks a little bit different than mine. I've got the new 2019 version up, but yours will have the same features in it as well if you've got one of the recent versions of Excel. Alrighty, so you have trace precedence and you also have trace dependence here. So your trace dependence, just to understand how that works, is a trace dependence is all of your numbers that feed into a formula. So the trace dependence are what formulas are depending on this number. Trace precedence are you've got a formula and you want to know where the formula is pulling from, what cells the formula is pulling from. So trace precedence will be which numbers are preceding your formula. So I'm just going to click on my bonus amount. By the way, to explain this, we have the individual, what their weekly sales number figure was, and which week it was. And then if they do reach over this $15,000 goal here, they do get that bonus of $500. So this formula just kind of figures out whether or not they got their bonus. And so I'm going to click on the option here for trace precedence, and it's going to show you all of the numbers, or yeah, the numbers that are pulling into the formula here. You can see there's some arrows that are pointing down there. And again, I'm just going to go down here. I'm going to trace precedence again. Unfortunately, you do have to click on each one by one. So there is no way of highlighting multiples, but something that we can suggest to Microsoft for later on. And as you can see here, we're starting to notice a pattern, which is super useful because you can see that there is what seems to be a relative reference to the weekly sales amount being pulled into the bonus calculation. And then there's an absolute reference because there's only one reference to 500 and there's only one reference to 15,000. So there's an absolute reference to those numbers pulling into all of these formulas. So again, just taking a look at those arrows will help you understand a little bit better how things are working on your page. If you do want to remove your arrows, just a matter of clicking on remove arrows here, that will get rid of them. If you do want to see, what formulas are depending on a specific number, so maybe I wanted to see which formulas are pulling this weekly bonus amount, just clicking on that number and hitting dependence there. And you can see it's giving you a bit of a heads up. And you can see a pattern in there, again, help you understand your page a little bit better. I'm going to remove my arrows. And this next part that I want to show you is the watch window part here. So the watch window is going to allow you to view things like your numbers. So what we want to do here, we've got this kind of summary table of the total amount of bonus payout. So how much each person earned in bonuses in total. And of course, those numbers are actually being pulled from the bonus column here. And so what I want to do is maybe I'm thinking, what if our bonuses are a little too high? We want to change the bonuses to 250, maybe half of that. Unfortunately for the employees that we've got, we're going to half the bonus amount. And we want to know how that's going to affect the bonus payout on this screen. Not easy to do because it's on two separate screens, but what you can do is you can actually add in a watch window, which is going to watch particular cells for you so that you can keep an eye on it even if you're on a different screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight the cells that I'd like to add a watch for. And then I'm going to click on the watch window. And you'll see on the left-hand side, you will have all of your values there, where it belongs, what sheet it belongs to, which cells you're looking at, and if you've got any formulas, it does show it there too. And now, when I go over to my trace cells and arrows tab, and I change this from 500, let's say I change it to $250 instead, one, you can see all of your bonuses changed to $250, but two, you'll notice on this screen over here, the watch that we added also reflects the updated amount. So it recalculated in the cells, and you can see it right on that window. So you don't have to kind of switch back and forth between windows. It's nice and accessible there for you. This last little tip that I'm going to give you today is going to be about error checking. So error checking, I always like to describe as kind of like a spell checker, but for errors in Excel. As you can see here, I do have a number of errors And again, this is just your bonuses. If they made a bonus, it should show $500 there, but right now it's not. So what we want to do is we want to figure out why. So the error checker is up here. Again, it's underneath your formula tab. There's an error checking button. Oh, before I do that, though, I'm just going to get rid of my watch window. And I'll click on the error checking button here. And again, this brings up what's kind of like a spell checker, but for Excel for errors. And you can see that it will pop to the first error on your screen, and it's going to show you what the formula is. It tells you what the error is here, and you can also get some help. So that goes to the Microsoft Help website. You can also show the calculation steps. I'm going to go over that in just a second, but it actually pops you in to a new tool that I'm going to explain. Ignore the error, just kind of gets rid of it, or at least the little green triangle, it will get rid of that green triangle. You'll still have the name error there. And edit in the formula bar just is going to pop you up to the formula bar so that you can make your changes. If you do know what the error is right off the bat, then that's going to be your go-to. However, right now, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Show Calculation Steps. And this is going to evaluate my formula. So you can go through, and it's going to evaluate step by step the entire formula. Right here, I have what's called an if formula. So I'm saying if this number is greater than whatever this number is, then show me my weekly bonus amount, G2 here. And if it isn't, then it will show me 0. So this should either show 500 or it should show 0. Right now, we're just getting the error. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to evaluate each one of the terms. You can actually see that it evaluated the first one, so D5 to 16,785.14. Now I'm going to click on evaluate one more time, and you're seeing that it says is 16,000 greater than name error. Of course, now you know exactly where that error is, and you can go and figure out what's wrong with that error. So rather than just seeing this one big name error, you actually see where the name error is specifically in that cell. It's underneath the second part of the first argument, so the H part here, and you know to fix that. So then I would just close this off. I typically just close the error checking off when I'm done as well. And I'm going to change this, and of course, I know that the error is that this should reference H2 rather than just H here. So I'm going to put in a 2, make that an absolute reference by using F4. I do give you, by the way, some tips and tricks on absolute references in my Excel level 1. So if you do want to attend that, then I'd love to see you there. And I'll pull that formula down, and you can see very quickly I was able to fix that error. All right, so I'm going to just keep the lines open here for some questions as we go through. I do hope you enjoyed the meat and potatoes of the presentation. This next part is all about your questions. So just as I'm watching for those questions, I'm just going to, of course, give you some additional information about JN Software and CopyEase. So just while I'm waiting for those questions, if you did enjoy the tips and tricks that we created, my wonderful colleague Christine, she created not one, but 2 of our own tips and tricks courses out of her years of experience teaching Excel. We also hand out some of these tips and tricks during our other Excel courses at CopyEase and JN Software. So I do typically give you some of these in my Excel level 1 and 2 and 3 for that matter. But one thing I did just want to point out here, if you do want to check out our website while we're waiting for those questions to pop in, we do have on the top right-hand side, and this is on the CompuEase website and on the JN Software website, you can see that we have some contact information. So if you want us to contact you about some training, maybe you have some questions about the training, you can either send a question on the chat, or you can go to our website and use the contact information up here. And we also have an online chat, so you can reach us in whichever way you would like to. We do have a blog, and we do have some other free webinars coming up, so feel free to sign up for those. So the blog, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what that looks like. you can see we have some tips and tricks in our blog. So we've got Excel custom views. We've got some information on updating numbers without using Excel, that sort of thing. So it's a very useful blog. Just taking a look at our upcoming classes, what we do offer are public, private, and one-on-one training. So you can definitely go to the computer training, what we offer page, and that's going to give you some more information about what works best for you. And if you look at our upcoming classes here, at the end of February, we do have a few different things like PowerPoint, Outlook, and that sort of thing. But we also have some more. And if you're not seeing something that you would like, just request an extra date and we'll see what we can do for you in terms of adding in an extra date. But you can see just at the very beginning of March, we also have quite a few different Excel training going on. So for the one question that was, can you do the watch window one more time, please? We will be handing out the video after this, so you can definitely, right after this, so you can definitely take a look at the video for the watch window and follow along. So just keep an eye out in your email. If you've registered for this webinar, you'll get it to whichever email address you sent to us. So underneath our free webinars button, you'll see this free webinars page. So we've got the Excel tips and tricks happening today, but you can see as well, we also have the Microsoft Word, you're doing it wrong, that's okay, so is everybody else, coming up next month. And the month after that, we're using OneDrive to collaborate in real time. Now, we do have some more coming up, so I'll just let you browse this page at your leisure and just register for whatever makes sense to you. And finally, if you are looking for some more tips and tricks, if you do search for JN Software and CompuEase, we do have a channel here. And you can see we have a bunch of different playlists for Excel tips, Word tips, Outlook tips, Visio, and Project. So you can go to any one of those channels or those playlists, and they will help you out. Alrighty, so just one thing to mention, just while we have questions coming in, I haven't gotten any other additional questions yet, but just one thing to mention is that we also do tie you into a live class. So if you are not in Ottawa and the surrounding area and we're running a class with the CompuEase team, we can definitely tie you in live, and so that we'll use something similar to what we're doing today, like a webinar style thing, so that you can actually listen in on our training session, ask your questions, and I like to answer those ones. I'll pretend like you're a person actually in that room as well. Alrighty, so since there haven't been any questions coming through yet, I will just go over the watch window one more time. So, just to give a little bit about that, the watch window, I'm just going to go back to my trace cells and arrows. What we were doing with that watch window is we were taking a look at the weekly bonus amount. And I wanted to know that when I changed my weekly bonus amount, how that was affecting the total bonus payout to each of the individuals. So to accomplish this, what I was doing is I was just selecting the bonus payout, what I would like to watch, hitting watch window. That would add a watch to each one of those cells, so D3 through D12 here. And as you can see, when I do play around with my weekly bonus amount, maybe I'll change it back to 500, just really quickly, the total bonus amounts all changed, and you can see how they changed in that watch window as well. You're welcome. No problem. Alrighty, so everybody, if you just want to submit all of your questions, if you've got any, I'm going to be here for the next little bit, just helping everybody out. But just again, while I'm waiting for some questions, some more anecdotes about CompuEase. So our training sessions are definitely guaranteed to run. So if you do, if you do have just one person registered, we are still going to run it. So you never have to have that worry. That was one of the biggest things that sets us apart from our different competitors, meaning that even if you're the only person, we will still make sure you get the knowledge that you need and run that class for you. I'm getting a lot of thank yous as well. So you're welcome, everybody, and thanks so much for attending. I was really, really happy to be able to share all of this with you today. So all those tips and tricks, they really helped me out in the business world. I wasn't always a trainer. I was a software tester and a software analyst at one point in my life. And yeah, if I had these tips and tricks, before I was a software tester and a software analyst, it would have made my day go a little bit simpler. But I'm really happy to be able to have shared that with you today. Yeah, for sure. So Linda has asked if this is going to be available to watch again at the very beginning. Yeah, no problem. So anybody that was registered for the class will be receiving a follow-up email. There will be a link in that follow-up email to the recording. So we're going to post this up online, and you can definitely rewatch it at your leisure and try along. Of course, you can create some scenarios yourself if you've got some time to do that. I do have a question from Susan. Apologies for arriving late. Technical issues. Yep, we're all there, Susan, for sure. We all have technical issues, including myself. I missed a bit on the fill handle. Where do I start with this? Is it on the ribbon or is it a button? Okay, so the fill handle, if I just go back to my fill handle tab there, to answer that question. Your fill handle is going to be that little button that copies over. So let me just copies over your formula. So let me just go over this really quickly. So you can see in here, I have all of my sales schedule and then a sum of all of those sales per store. What I can do is I can click on that cell, and then the fill handle is this little box at the very bottom right hand side of your selection. And if you hover over that, you get the little black plus. That's where your fill handle is. And you can click and drag, and that's going to definitely copy over your formula. And you can see with the formula specifically, it actually updated all of my references to be relative to where I'm copying the formula as well. So my references were up here for the first formula, and they're down here for the second, and they'll be down here for the third as well. So that's your little fill handle. Just keep in mind that you do and play around with the context menu after you use your fill handle, because you are going to get some options on using that fill handle as well. Yeah, for the full thing, I do have some other questions coming in right now, so I'll try to get to those. But for the full, I guess, tips for the fill handle, you can definitely rewatch this video. Okay. Okay, perfect. So is the watch window available on Excel for Mac? Actually, the Mac, I haven't used it, but I believe the Excel versions for Mac and the Excel versions for Windows are designed to be identical, with maybe just some buttons put in different places in terms of your keyboard shortcuts. So your watch window should be there, but I can just take a look online and figure that one out really quickly. I do believe, though, I'm 90% sure that the watch window should be there. So when you are on your Mac, just go underneath your formulas ribbon and click on click on the formulas ribbon. Go to your formula auditing and take a look. There should be a watch window button there. If it's not there, then just take a look at your. I guess just look online for your Windows help, or sorry, your Excel help, I should say. Would there be any training for how to add formulas? from okay, so yes, so there is training on how to add formulas for sure. So we do offer, like I said, the Excel 1, 2, and 3. For adding formulas, the very basics on that is in our level 1. So in terms of just your general format for the formulas and just how to add them in quickly. And then of course, it does kind of go a little bit more in depth in terms of how you would add some more complicated formulas as well. But really the level 2 is where you get the really complicated ones like your VLOOKUP and your other things as well. There's some other ones in there as well that you can take a look at. So just make sure to look at the course the course outline for the Excel level 1 and the Excel level 2. Oh, it's Janet. Yes, you're welcome. So, Janet, just take a look at the Excel level 1 and level 2 outlines. If you just go to our website, Janet, and you take a look at any one of the courses that you're interested in. So you can see here there's an Excel level 2. If you just click on that on our website, again, same thing with JN Software and CompuEase, both of those websites, you can see that there are course outlines for every course we offer. So I do like to just point you in that direction there. No problem. All right, so if there's any more questions, feel free to submit them. I can see there's still a bunch of people online, so for the for the rest of the participants that are online, yeah, feel free to ask any and all of your questions. Get them in for sure. But while we're waiting, I just wanted to mention that in our private sessions, you actually get to bring in any files, any data that you have from your own work, and we can actually use it as our samples to help you. So you would provide that ahead of time. We would teach the same curriculum, but we would use your files to help you out with that. Or if there's any specific custom training that you would like, we can also help you out with some custom training as well. So feel free to contact us about the private or the custom training to get exactly what you want out of that training. You're welcome, Susan, and thanks for joining us today. And I am looking forward definitely to seeing you at the next training or next webinar, I should say. Alrighty, I'm not receiving any more questions and I'm seeing people starting to drop out. So I'm going to end the session, but thanks so much everybody for joining. And if you do have anything, just contact us at our, you can see here our website. We have our phone number and our email address. If you do have any questions whatsoever, we are always happy to help. Thanks so much.